Welcome to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. What's your train wreck? Everyone has one. The question is, are you going to live there or are you just visiting? Let's check in with Mary, Fran, and Kristen to learn how to come through not broken, but brilliant.
Hey everyone, before we dive into this week's episode, we have a resource that we wanted to tell you about.
Transform every week of yours with our Brilliance Bit that will deliver right to your email inbox. Sign up for it at brilliantlyresilient.net and keep living brilliantly resilient. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. I'm Kristen Smedley here with my buddy Mary Fran Bontempo, and I can say this. My best friend from the UK is here.
Yeah.
We finally have Clarke Reynolds in the house. The guy that is I think that he's actually twice as busy as I am. So people that think I'm busy, nah, Clarke is the man, the myth, the legend across the pond that is not only changing perceptions of blindness, changing perceptions of resilience, changing perceptions of what one person really can do in this world. Clarke, I am so happy you're here. How are you?
Oh, really good. Like I say, really busy. I don't even know what day of the week it is. I've been here, there, everywhere. I think tomorrow I'm actually booked onto a radio station live in the studio. So that's going to be exciting as well.
Oh man, good stuff. Now the reason that if you can't access this visually, if you're not watching the video or if you're listening, I just smile all the time when Clarke talks about how busy he is, because when we met a couple of years ago, Clarke came into the Zoom room in the Succeed Without Sight Summit, and he said, I am going to be a famous artist. And I said, great. And he said, but people in the UK are saying a visually impaired artist is not a thing. And Clarke was like, yes, it is. And then he said, and I'm bringing Braille into the art. And I was like, what now?
Love it. Yeah,
Multiple layers.
Yeah,
multiple layers of perceived barriers.
Yeah. I mean, Braille is a great icebreaker for, I knew about Braille, but to physically use it in a way that tells stories. It was meant to be. I had to go blind to learn Braille and then bring Braille to the masses, basically. And people say I'm crazy, but I love being blind because I can't change the fact. I can't mope about indoors and, sit on the sofa, listen to an audiobook. That's not me, and I've made so many amazing friends. I've engaged with so many thousands of children. Literally this year already, I'm 2,500 children going into schools and teaching Braille and educating what sight loss is. And that's the power of art, and that's the beauty of art.
As someone who is sighted, Kristen has kind of introduced me to this whole world of Braille. And I have to say, when I saw you on her summit and saw the tactile nature of your art, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a whole different thing. Like, this is an incredibly amazing way to appreciate the art in an entirely new way. And not only does it make it accessible on a level for a non-sighted person, but it makes it accessible on a whole other level to a sighted person, which is the real beauty of this, because it opens that world up to all sorts of people. Maybe not the originally intended audience, but oh my gosh, for a sighted person to see your work, it's amazing.
Well, that's the beauty. So I kind of like bridged the world of a tactile and a visual world. Foremost, I'm a visual artist. I'm an artist before I lost my sight, and we live in a visual world. I'm a visual person. So why do I change that? My art is there to be tactile, but also I'm catering for you, for the sighted audience. I want people to look at my artwork, not knowing it's Braille, and look at it and like, oh my God, that's really, that's so vivid, that's enticing. And then there's big signs saying you must touch the artwork. And then you think, what's that about? Touching the artwork? You can't.
Nobody's allowed to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a big no-no, especially when it's got a big price tag on it these days. It's like, that's double no-no, but no, it's part of the story. And it's a way of physically engaging with the art. When we go to galleries and big ones that have barriers up, like literally, you're not engaging with it anymore. You stand back like 2 meters away and you're thinking, and then you look at it You look at it for 7 seconds and walk off. You've taken your time to go to a museum, and why are you spending 7 seconds to look at a piece of artwork? You know, why aren't you chatting with that artwork? So my artwork allows you to chat with it, chat with strangers next to it, and engage, have a conversation.
You know, Clarke, first of all, you said Braille is an icebreaker. That is so opposite of what the world thinks, right? This is what I love so much about you, and why we just had to have you on this show, among other things. The first pillar in living brilliantly resilient is looking at challenges differently. It's looking through a different lens, and you're teaching the world one of the most brilliant things. Braille is not a barrier or something to be like quiet about. Braille is the tool for literacy, and it's exciting. I mean, it is a way for people that are blind to access literacy. And the fact that no one, that's what was so memorable and remarkable, and why people are still talking about you from that summit. You completely blew the roof off of how we look at something like Braille, and you continue to do it. And now all these kids that you're impacting are looking at it as exciting and access, as opposed to, oh, that's different, I don't understand.
That's it. We live in an age, you know, the kind of like the coding age. You know, kids, my 9-year-old loves coding. She loves Minecraft, you know, and Braille is just a code. It's just a new way of looking at ABC, you know. So when I go into schools and I teach, they don't realize that they're actually getting sneaky maths involved, because Braille is a mathematical language, right? So the kids are learning, and then they asking questions about sight loss that adults don't ask, because kids have no filter, you know. So we break down the stigma attached to what is sight loss. How can you see colors? What do you see? And then we had that conversation. So the idea is those kids grow up in 20 years' time, we're not having this conversation. What is sight loss? That's the idea. That's the plan.
You know, it's interesting. You're talking about this as a conversation, because I'm thinking, you know, to a sighted person, sighted people just don't know how to approach blindness if they've had no experience with someone who's blind. I certainly didn't until I met Kristen and her boys, and especially Mitchell, who at first you think, oh, maybe I have to treat them with kid gloves. And then you come across Mitchell and you're like, well, the gloves are off. So, but it allows this conversation to take place to the point of it being an icebreaker on a different level. It doesn't have to be about the blindness. It can be about the art. And then you lead it into that other space to allow for understanding, which really on some level is what all art is supposed to be. You're just adding another dimension to it.
It is, and what I do is I make it fun. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of learning a new language is, oh God, it's quite daunting, isn't it? You know, learning French or German. You know, and Braille is just a new language. You know, so you make it fun, and it leads itself perfectly to art. You know, the idea, it doesn't have to be a dot. I mean, behind me, it is a perfect example of that. You know, Braille is about a pattern. So behind me is a giant Union Jack. And the actual dots are made up of the silhouettes of the king and queen. And it's called Oops, I Sang the Wrong Monarch. So basically, it's a great feel as well, because obviously you've got those lovely silhouettes of the faces. It's a really good tactile just to feel. And it reads the national anthem, but just stripping out the words. Because obviously we had a queen for 70 years. So people are still going to slip up and say, God, when we sing our national anthem, put the queen in. You know, so I've just flipped out the words, you know, and, you know, it's about playing around with the language, using the Braille dot to host the English language. That's what I say. And like I say, it doesn't have to be a dot. It's all about the pattern.
You could say all sorts of things in Braille to the sighted world, and we wouldn't know what the heck you were talking about. So you could really have a field day with that now, couldn't you?
I could. I haven't done so because I say cater for a lot of children. I haven't gone down that route yet. It's in the back of my mind. Trust me, it's in the back of my mind. One day there will be explicitories, but the idea is, I say, so, you know, I learnt Braille. I'm self-taught. I did it with buttons, and you know, we talk about the use of Braille in society. So I've learnt it, but I want to use it, but use it correctly. You know, obviously a Braille book, but the thing is, I've got audio for that. I love my audio books. I'm talking smart Braille. The idea is, go into a restaurant, there's a Braille menu. Go into a lift, there's always Braille in the lift. You know, why isn't Braille on every toilet door and by the handle? Not up here, No one pushes the door up here. We're talking about by the handle, and then I push, and I know it's a male, female, unisex, disabled toilet. And they're big, so you have those big letters like you speed read, I can speed touch. That's what I want. And you brand it. I'm a braille typographer, just like a typographer uses color and to show off the letters. I just show off the dot in color and shape and size.
I love it. I love it. Here's my question for you, Clarke. And I want our listeners to understand that if you are like knocking on doors and not getting an answer, or you think, you've got this idea that you're chasing and it's never going to happen and people are telling you you're crazy, think about being a blind artist that wants to incorporate Braille. Now, Clarke, after that summit, did you just all of a sudden, you go out there and everybody said, yes, come into our galleries. Sure, no problem.
No, not at all. It was hard work. It's hard work being an artist anyway. I knew that when I wanted to be an artist from, day dot. So you've got to have good resilience, a good backbone, thick skin, because you can get rejection, and I think that's helped. Obviously a lot of rejection back when I could see as an artist, and obviously double rejection when I can't see as an artist. So I just, I worked hard. I was working on this color-coded Braille. I finally got an exhibition, and the exhibition toured, and you make your own luck as an artist. You need luck, and just happened to be that I created some plaques for a charity called Vision Foundation, and that Vision Foundation raised £3,000 for the charity. And so it just happens that the director of a major gallery in London was at that gala, and that was it. That changed my life. Qantas Gallery, meeting James. And he said to me, didn't chat about the art, just chatting about how we're chatting about now, about my life. Turned around and said to me, right, I'm going to keep you on a retainer. Now, any artist in their right mind, a retainer is gold. No matter what, the idea is like, I suppose it's a professor getting, in your school, you're set for life. You're never going to get sacked. So as a retainer, as an artist, it's great. I just create the artwork and the gallery sells it, and, win-win for everyone. And I had my first major exhibition in London in January, and my world blew up. I mean, I think Kristen's phone blew up because she got me on the Google alerts. I was on Sky News, BBC, Channel 5, Euronews. I even looked the other day, I found it on the New Jersey Library website. I was everywhere. I was even in Korea, in the Korean Herald. That's how far and wide I went. And that's the beauty, having a platform that's made me, it's given me the impetus. I go to these schools now. These schools are ringing me up saying, can you come into school? And next week I'm off to a school in Essex. So it really changed my life. But by pushing hard, you have to work hard at anything you do in life.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to point out that for those that are listening, and I want that to land well and stick, that it was hard work. I mean, Clarke came into our Thriving Blind Academy membership calls every Monday, like 80% of the Mondays. You were there, even traveling all over London and talking to all of these art galleries and all. You showed up for all of those mentoring calls, and I'll never forget the one mentoring call and this is a big part of being brilliantly resilient, is asking for help. When you were about to go back out into the world, when all of the lockdowns were freed up and all that, and you said in that call, I've had a lot of vision loss since I was out in the world. Give me some tips and some strategies of how I can do this, this, and this. And everyone in the call was giving their strategies to you. And I thought that was one of the most brilliant things of all the brilliant things that you've done, is to come in there and say, now I built this. I'm able to get out there, but there's this one facet that I need help with. And you asked for help and got it.
And that's it. And that's the, people think that, obviously we talk about kid gloves with blind people, if I need help, I have a mouth, I'll ask for help. I'm a very independent person, going to London a lot. I mean, if you've never been to London, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare when you can see. Can you imagine if you can't see? So learning the tube, all the different places I'm going on, London Underground. So that's been exciting because I love learning new stuff. And I suppose that leads me into learning London in a new way. So what we in now? June. So literally 8 weeks ago, I ran the London Marathon, and I've got my medal here. And the medal, first time, has got Braille on it, and it reads "We run together." And literally, that is a great slogan, because 2 miles out, my guide runner carried me across the line because my hips went after 24 miles. But I did it. It was an amazing achievement. I did it, and I've signed up for next year. Oh my God.
That is incredible. That is incredible. I will watch you from the sidelines in my chair here on the live stream. So I'm not running any marathons.
But that is also, I mean, Clarke, talk about for a second here. I watched your social media, the dehydration, the your feet were like, I don't even know how you were able to stand for weeks after that.
My feet are still recovering. I mean, like my foot is still growing new skin as we speak. But it was one of those things. I always wanted to do it when I had sight. It's one of those bucket list things. And only 1% of the population does a marathon. And you realise why. You can train for it physically, but you can't train for it mentally. It's a mentally tough race. And what is great is obviously it rained on that day, so I think I experienced the marathon like no one else had, right? I experienced it through sound. I was hearing the splashing of the puddles. I was hearing the rustling of other people with their whatever they were wearing. And the crowds, we had these big signs with our names on it at the front, and they're there so that complete strangers will shout your name out to give you encouragement. I mean, that is amazing. It truly is.
So I want to kind of jump around a little bit here. You talked about the mental preparedness for this, and you're clearly, a wonderfully effusive, enthusiastic person. But how did you get to that point? Because I would imagine that, there's some pretty rough periods in all of this and in this transformation and everything. How do you make that transition? How did you mentally prepare yourself not only for doing the things you're doing now, but the initial sight loss? How do you do that?
I think it's the upbringing. I've not come from money. I grew up in a council estate, very low income. I've said it many times, if I never found art, I wouldn't be here. My brother, literally it's only 2 years between us, he chose the other path, and unfortunately 5 years ago he was found dead in a street corner, homeless. So, that for me, it really did. The majority of my friends who grew up in a council flat were either dead, in jail, or a substance abuse, and I never went down that path. I could have, but I found out at a very early age, and that set me through bad kidneys. So I had bad kidneys in my teens, so I left school very early. But my fighter got back into higher education, and then obviously sight loss. But then I never felt it as like, oh my God, I'm losing my sight, because I've always had art in my life. It was one of those obstacles that, right, so now the sight's gone, I'm going to be the artist I wanted to be from the age of 6. So I never lost that dream, that hardness, that mentality of being better, trying to break the cycle. It's hard when you're in that situation. It's so hard to break out of it. And I wanted to better myself, and that's always been in my mind, to better myself.
How has that been in your mind? Did you have a role model that you followed? Did that was just something innate?
No role model. My real dad was in the Navy, never saw him, abusive stepdad. So that wasn't a role model. My role model was my sketchbook, if that makes sense. It was literally what I could put on paper. What I took all that, whatever I suppose back then was, probably some PSD or something, really bad stuff going on. But my sketchbook was there. It was my shrink. It was my role model. It was everything. That sketchbook was my life. And without those sketchbooks, I wouldn't be talking to you now. I wouldn't be having fun. I wouldn't be a character in your book, Christine. I mean, come on. I'm not being funny. That is that. I've done a lot of things in the last couple of years, but my daughter instantly recognised me in my brow suit, and it's amazing. I just keep smiling every time I think that I'm a character in a children's book. It's just
Well,
bizarre.
you embody, the book is called, for those that don't know, my children's book that just came out is What I Can Be Is Up to Me. And the whole thing is about, don't let the world tell you what you can or can't be. It is completely up to you. And I didn't even know your whole backstory, Clarke. I just knew you from Our World Now, and you are 100% that title. I mean, you declared what you were going to be in this world and didn't let anybody stop you from the time you were little.
Mm. Yeah, it's really weird, because usually as an artist, right, usually you would have a granddad or an uncle or someone in the family that's quite artistic, because that's how you copy. And, my daughter copies me. She's, oh my God, she's going to be an amazing artist. But I have no idea where it's come from. I really don't, I mean, I keep telling Kristen I want to be famous. I do want to be famous. I want to be on shows in the UK. We've got one, Who Do You Think You Are, where they look for your backstory and stuff. I mean, there must be, I must have some ancestor who's a famous creative long down the line. It would be amazing to find that out. But, and the idea of being famous is to change people's perception of what someone could do as a blind person in the creative industry. How cool would it be to have in the future, have a fund where I can help other vision impaired children be whatever they want to be in the creative industry, behind the camera, front of the camera, a poet, an actor, anything they want to be, and I can help facilitate that. That's what I want to do.
I'm listening to you talk about your sketchbook being your role model, and that really hit me, because I think when people are in really challenging times, and this is kind of what I want our listeners to get out of this, there is always something that still feeds you. And sometimes the way that gets you through and pulls you out of that is to just latch on to that thing when there doesn't seem to be anything else. And as you said, don't lose that dream. Don't lose that desire, whether it's a creative thing, whether it's, something that you like to do in service to other, whatever it is. Sometimes when people are at their lowest, they don't know where to go. And there is almost always something within you still, some spark, but you have to feed it.
That's it. And, I love doing art. I love being this artist I am now. But what being blind has made me a better person and a better artist. It's made me appreciate art that I never did before. And also the engagement. I would never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be going into schools and be an inspiration. I mean, that is amazing. Someone who's come from nothing to this point, and I've still got 40 years left of my life that I can still want to push. I as an artist, we always say you can half your. So I'm 21 now, so keep going. That's what I can say.
Well, I want people to also understand this in all of my talking with, interviewing, being on calls with, mentoring with people in the blind community. One of the common thread, and actually even in Brilliant the Resilient too, now that I think about all of our interviews, there's a common thread in finding something that lights you up. Like Clarke, you're saying you had the sketchbook and art. When my boys were playing sports, when they still had enough vision and then the vision declined, we used that as an opportunity to uncover other things that they were interested in. Michael found music. And I think just like you, Clarke, that it was one of the biggest blessings for especially Michael, that his sports had to end, because he was not destined to play sports. He was destined to be in the creative field. We uncovered his talent and love for music in middle school. Very hard time for most kids in middle school. And that's where Michael started to really grow and flourish, when most kids were crashing in middle school, because he found that one thing. Now, Michael probably has 17 things that light him up, but it was that music, that talent, that love that really kept him on a trajectory of growing. And Mitchell found a different way with music, that he can listen and then communicate things about music as opposed to playing it. But I know from talking to so many people, that is a common thread in people being resilient and really coming into their purpose in this world. And I think as parents, with all the love in our hearts, we do it with love for our kids, to try to guide them and push them where we think that they should be. instead of letting, and we want to fix everything for them, but when we let it go, when we let the hard stuff happen, let them figure it out and let them uncover what their passions are, that's when we have the big turnarounds and the ahas.
But it's true. It's true. It's like, it's really strange how we go through life and people fall in and out of love of art. Majority of people, they do art when they're younger, and then they have a proper career, and then they fall back into art in later life, and that's quite sad. I think every job, no matter what you're doing, every job needs that spark of creativity. Even if you're in an office, you need that spark of creativity. It's always, the idea we're living too serious of a life now. Let's get back to being that 6-year-old going into galleries and drawing in that sketchbook. It's, if COVID has not taught us anything, it's taught us to live a life, a life of fulfillment. Life is short, and you want to put the best you can. And I'm doing that. And I'm doing it all across the UK. And America. I think a lot of people know me in America, which is great. And I hope to come over more often to the States. As you can see, I'm a great talker. I don't need notes. I love to be a keynote speaker. Kristen's always said you've got to have it structured. But as an artist, I can't structure anything. I just do it. I do it. I do it. I read the room, and I just do it. Because it's a passion. It's a passion of my life, and I just bear it all, because if someone in that room I can inspire through my talk, then I've done my job.
I can't think of a better way to wind up an episode than on something like that. You have been beyond delightful. I can't tell you how much I was looking forward to this episode. I kept asking Kristen, did you get Clarke yet? Did you get Clarke yet? Did you get Clarke yet? Because I so wanted to get more of your energy, which again came through. This was a couple years ago. Kristen had the summit and came through, and you did not disappoint. I mean, you gave us so many things to think about, not only within blindness, but to encourage people to keep looking for that spark and that thing that lights them up, and to live with a little bit more joy. So, Clarke, tell us where we can find you and get more Clarkeness.
You can find me Instagram, theblind.brow.artist. I love my Instagram. And obviously my website is my great website, Seeing Without Seeing. So all lowercase, Seeing Without Seeing. And then you've got links to my podcast, which we're not talking about art and sight, which I talk about art. And the Qantas Gallery, where you can purchase all my gorgeous art. Because if you don't purchase it now, I guarantee next year it'll be worth double. All right, so you've got to get it in now before it goes double and quadruple. So if you've got a young family and you want to put them through college, invest in my art right now.
I love you so much.
I can't think of a better pitch. That was phenomenal. You should be writing pitches too.
Oh gosh, Clarke.
It's great.
Thanks.
It's been fantastic.
I love it. I love it. Thanks so much for coming in here today, and for always re-energizing me and the world. And as I'm watching you change all of these perceptions, you're not just changing perceptions of blindness. You are changing perceptions of resilience, perceived hardships, challenges, and having a heck of a lot of fun doing it all. So thanks for those that are looking to are interested in the children's book that has Clarke in there in his yellow suit with the Braille dots and a little sign that says, please touch the art. It's at whaticanbeisuptome.com. Thanks everybody for being here. And if you would like to have more tips on living brilliantly resilient every week, go to brilliantlyresilient.net, get our brilliance bit. It is a less than 1 minute read, and we will deliver it right to your email inbox. We'll see y'all next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Join our Facebook group and follow us on YouTube to be inspired with tools to reset, rise, and reveal your brilliance.